and extreme restrictions or impositions. You want them to get, ideally, you want your kids to get to school, get to university, and then get out on their life and they're capable of getting good jobs. But lots of people don't make it to university. By high school, in this central development phase, relationships come in, they're nuts. Depends on their foundation. They don't fit in, they don't make it through school, or they decide they want a job instead, or they have their relationships come in and they're trying to get money and they want other things. Different factors come in. So it's like a waterfall going over. Some of the water moves on, some goes one way, some goes another way. This period of 14 to 21, that's going from teenage years to being an adult. 21, you're mature. I call it pseudo maturity because by 21, nobody's telling you what to do. But you think you know what you want to do, and you think you know what you do, but you really don't know what you want to do. But there's an adjustment of authority. It's no longer interreacting to everyone else. By the time you leave school, where you had your friends and enemies and everybody was there and all sorts of texture around you, suddenly you're alone. Either you're staying at home, or you got an apartment, or you got someplace, and you don't have all the same friends anymore. You may try and work to maintain them, but you get more isolated and you don't see everybody anymore. It's a really different gong that goes off at 21. Usually we're running at it, we're pushing at it, it still goes on, and we're still moving further and further away from the environment and the texture of being involved and interwoven with everyone that we go up through. And also at 21, by 21, you don't want to be told by your parents what you're doing and what you're not doing. You may decide, I may have to align with them, get some help or to get some assistance, but you want to get your own things going, and you're trying to, this whole process of sensual development, you're getting your own responsibilities. By the time you're trying to date, or by the time you're kissing someone or making love to someone, you're not thinking about your parents, but you're accumulating responsibilities of your own. At the same time, you're studying, you're meeting people in school, you're adding things. How far do you go? How far does that go to develop? The most martial or sexual or sensuous people. It's a challenge to be very sensuous and attractive and popular and still get your degree and go on to university. It's more likely you could meet someone, run into someone, and babies come, and all of a sudden your life goes in another way, and the education is something, well, maybe you get how far you go, what you go. There's different degrees of this. So I could have said these are all different levels of education, but I think development's a better word of going through this, and we see the education against the background of this. So struggles with authority, with parents, with jobs, with attitudes, with work. These are all things that come up on Saturn to itself. They're just growing pains from growing up, and you're seeing, but really critical problems, if they show at these times, they represent major efforts that's going to take getting out of the old phase and working towards the new phase. By repressing a teenager from sensual development, you're not helping them in the new direction, you're trying to hold them back into the mental development, and really not creating ways where they can develop those social skills. There's inherent conflict there, of what you want, where you don't want to be, not being content with you, and don't want to stay where you are, but you're having to, how do I change this? And it's easy to blame parents and authority figures. Even at 21, if you got the job and the guy's great, then it comes out as adjustment to really, you're going to start my own business. I'm going to finish my medical degree. I'm going to get established. I'm going to accomplish things. Or if not, it's like, I just got to get a job, or I got to do something. Like, life's active, and it's not so much about it's putting in time. So whether you've lived up to a standard and you've followed on the standard and you're trying to live up to parents and prove you can do everything, or you're not and you realize they're messed, who cares what I do, I'm just doing whatever, I'm not, you get a disassociative factor from 14 on. In fact, that disassociation can come really inhibition earlier, but a lot of early inhibition is the necessary prerequisite for later ambition to overcome the inhibition over time. Anything can be achieved. It just takes time and discipline. If you don't put the discipline, you don't get the results. If you don't plant the seeds and then take out the weeds, and you're not going to get the harvest of the garden. So this tactile, sensual development of doing things, having adventures, going places, living life. We idealize these times. But some people, they have really horrible experiences these times. They're not idealized at all. But by seeing these critical points and seeing these phases of development, you can begin to sense a standard against which to measure somebody's life, where they're coming from. How'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up? What'd you do? How'd you get into school? How was your grade school days? How do you remember them? What was your high school days? Did you get to university? And if you didn't, what other options are there? Wow. A lot of kids that come out of bad homes or difficult homes or displaced homes, they're teenagers and they just want to have sex, have fun. They don't want to have anything to do with the family. They're just trying to get their own experiences, and they're almost doing anything against the law. It doesn't matter. Don't anything that causes restraint. I don't respect it. Why can't we do this? And it builds up and accumulates, where even your legal status begins to how much trouble you get in or don't get into. It can be social, it can be personal. How much did you work at? What did you do? There could be bullies at school. There's an increasing texture that develops here. By the time you get to school and you're thinking, what individual am I? There's so many pressures on us and so many things going on. It almost can't be explained. By keeping busy, we manage to get through those stages. There's all kinds of good books about, like there's baby books, how to bring up babies. There's a book called Passages of Things We Go Through in Our Life. These are all really experiential experience of the times. But if you take those books and look at them and look at them against this, they're just talking exactly these cycles. So this adjustment at 21, did I get through school? Didn't I? Am I going to have to work on my own, or am I going to fit into the college? I'm working this way. Am I part of the system? I'm not. What am I doing? This adjustment of what kind of work am I doing? 21. What am I achieving? A lot of women have their kids. Here's my work. And the adjustment is, do I have a guy who's holding it together or being responsible, or do I have to work? These things are coming in at 21. And we think we're supposed to know what we're doing at 21. And we start from 21 to 29 to 30 is our emotional development. We start having feelings about how good we are, how good we aren't, or what we like or what we don't like, and what we want to do and what we don't want to do. I'm doing this. Oh, I worked hard. I'm going to go out and have a drink. I'm going to watch the game. Hopefully, this emotional development can be still tied up to the teenage years, or it can be really driven to go to while you're trying to build up your career, and sometimes you're building up your family, and you have emotions of building up your own family and developing these things. Our experiences get very differentiated from 21 to 30. And we begin to see how much we're achieving or don't achieve, how much we're fitting in or don't fitting in, how hard we're working or not, how well we're getting paid, what we've got. By the time we get towards 30, towards the Saturn return, you look around, if you're a single woman, you look around, most of your friends, a lot of your friends by the time will be married, have a couple of kids and have their home, and you're wondering what's going on. It's two different worlds. Guys too, you come up, this emotional development is, you think you're responsible, you think you're at Saturn squares your sun, the Saturn squares itself, and you're making this adjustment at 21. What am I doing? I got through school, I'm going to set this up, or I didn't, I'm going to do this job, or I'm going to set these things up. We're adjusting, taking on responsibility. I have to do it myself, otherwise I'm stuck at home living with my parents and having to put up with the old responsibility without going forward. So it's that extra effort to take care of yourself. But as we're doing that, we're really sensitive emotionally to whether somebody likes us or doesn't like us, where we fit in, whether we have a family or home or personally. If I have a relationship, I can go deal with anything, or if I don't, how can I deal with it? Like, this emotional quality builds up, and we develop a social emotional maturity or immaturity during those years. We're extending out to see what we can accomplish. So this grows and continues on, but when we get to the Saturn return, this is really one of those brutally acute things that we see in life. The Saturn return, see, the first half of the Saturn cycle, you're becoming the combination of your parents. Then you understand that's not enough. And the second half, you're reacting to the way you were brought up and dealing with other responsibilities and taking on responsibilities yourself. So we become the combination of our parents. If it's good, we are the perfect kids and we grow up perfectly. If it's not, we get disassociated and we're not fitting in the same way, we're doing it a different way. By the time we get to the Saturn return, where first it shows up as a year before Saturn return, there's this huge depression. There's a sense that everything's ending. Everybody's going, what's this all for? Where is it going? This feels like a death almost, especially if it's disassociative times. So let's just say if a person hasn't left home by the time they get to 30, by the time they hit their Saturn return, when would they? They haven't grown up. They're just staying at home. Would you want to date someone that's just staying at home still? Okay, or you get someone that's worked so hard, they've done everything for business, but they never had a family, never had a relationship. They get to them and think, oh, geez, I'm missing a lot. What can I do? I can't keep going like that. I got to do it differently. And it's hitting the gong. See, until you're 30, till the Saturn return, everything Saturn does is the first time. It's the first time. You're just growing through it. By the time Saturn return happens and you go past that, everything happens to you after your Saturn return, you've been through before. You're on another rung of the spiral. And you've been through this before, 30 years before. So really the problems you're dealing with now are problems we had to deal with 30 years ago. You go back 29, 30 years ago, those struggles then are directly related to the struggles you're having now. Well, okay, so here we are, 2018. So you go back to 1988, 89. What was happening then? And it'll be different things, but sometimes it becomes a lateral move and you get the same thing happen again. But often it's a spiral and it's a different level, but there's still, in some funny way, a relationship between these two things. So you want to anchor these things in. But the Saturn return, if someone hasn't left home at time of 30, if someone hasn't made love to someone from 14 to 30, when will you? If you didn't take the risk or take the jump between 14 and 21, and then between 21 and 20 and 30, if you haven't taken the risk and had a relationship, boy, you're going to be really depressed and you're going to be afraid of taking that relationship. It's a huge thing. You're going to crystallize in a new identity, but it'll be more isolated and harder to make room for someone to come in. If you haven't found a career you want to do or something you like doing, wow. Now, for a lot, because when you get to the Saturn return, you're setting the structure, or the structure is being defined for the next 30 years. It's being set. And it's telling you in the same way that when you were born, it was set with what your body shape, whatever, it was your strength, your health, it was set to go through this first cycle. But the second time you're aware of it, you're going over it a second time. You got a chance to change it, but it takes effort. So if someone gets disassociative and they start doing drugs or drinking a lot, or they have a social world, they're partying, they're drinking, they're going along through this emotional development phase, they're partying, drinking, and they didn't think they had to grow up. By the time they get to the Saturn return, their world falls apart. Some of the famous rock stars, that Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, people who were, and there's probably lots of others, but those ones I remember offhand, but they died in this period because they were partying and they pushed the limits with drugs, with other things. They had the overdose. They never grew up. By the time you're 30, you can't go back and be 21 anymore. But normally we think we're 10 years, 12 years younger than we are. So we're growing up, we have new commitments, and usually by Saturn return, if you have a kid, in China, if a woman hasn't had a kid, hasn't got married and hadn't have a kid by 30, they're an old maid. They're not a good investment anymore. Here it's not quite the same way. But it is a difference. Like if you have a kid when you're young, you're going to just go through it, whatever. By 30, the kid's just going, you have to think, what am I going to do next? What else is there? So by 30, it's decision time. You think your growing up point is 21. No, it's at 29. What am I going to do with my life? What have I done? What have I accomplished? You're seeing half of you is the combination of what your parents made you, and half of you is whatever else happened.